This is Dating After Death, a podcast sorting out all the complicated emotions that come along with looking for love again after losing our forever person. And I am your currently anonymous host. Today we have an incredible episode for you. We are talking to Mariah Sandoval, who's on Instagram at Recklessly Loving, about her experience in the last few years, online dating and reveling in loneliness, and so many insightful things that she has to offer. I mean, just listen to this.
My goal was to stop trying to think that being in a relationship would stop me from feeling lonely. Right? My goal was to stop thinking that somehow another person is going to make this stop.
I explained in the interview why I chose Mariah for the first actual episode of the podcast. And just one of my favorite moments, we had just started talking, and she's a mom of 3 boys. One of her boys woke up. She took care of business with him and then invited him to sit on the couch with her.
You have to go. You can come and sit with me over. I'm going to be on the couch, but you got to be quiet, okay?
So for this whole interview, it's Mariah and her youngest son sleeping in her lap. Okay, we're recording a podcast. So exciting. So I want to start by saying why I wanted you to be first, which is just a short story. And it's because there was some point last year where I was just in the depths of shitty grief stuff. And I somehow realized that I can look at hashtags on Instagram and see other people who might be going through crap. And I saw you and I was like, oh man, this girl is for real. And she looks like a badass. And so you were the first official widow I found on Instagram. And I think the first person I reached out to or connected with. So it was a while ago. I asked you about your dating experience and you were awesome. And so supportive and so great. Yeah. And then we almost met in San Diego.
Yes, I know. And I'm so bummed that it didn't happen.
We were so close.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've been following your life, like you do on Instagram, and don't talk a ton about your dating. Or at all really.
No,
so
I don't.
I'm very curious what's happening. But before we do all that, can you just tell us a little bit about Paul and your marriage? And
yeah. Paul and I went to high school together. His sister and I were in the same grade. Paul was a couple years younger than I was. And we didn't hang out in high school. And, but around, I think I was 22 and he was 21. We went to the river. His sister invited me to go to the river and she invited him. And then we ended up sharing a room because there wasn't a lot of beds. So it's her and her boyfriend had a room. And then I was like, no, I'm not sleeping on the couch. I'm an adult. So, and then we ended up sharing a room and then we just ended up one night talking till 3 a.m. And then all of a sudden I was like, dude, I'm super into it. And he was the most beautiful man you'd ever seen, he's big, giant, 6'3" with his huge shoulders. And so I made up reasons to hang out. And we just started dating and then it was good. And then at one point he had talked about living overseas and I was like, oh, I'm a teacher. I could live overseas and I got a job. And we talked about getting married and we did. And then we had our 10-year anniversary in 2018 and he died 4 months after that. Okay. And then the baby, my youngest child, who's now almost 4, he was born 2 days before our 10-year anniversary. Okay. So, but we had hit a sweet spot, at that point, we had gotten through those growing pains. And it was at the point where it's we just liked each other. Yeah. Not only loved each other, but we just liked each other. He would call me every day on his way home from work just so we could have that time to talk. Cause when you get home, your kids are all over the place. You're not going to talk. Right. But we still talked every single day just to enjoy each other's company, and so it was good. It was we'd both put that work in and kind of trained one another and we knew our roles and we just were at this point of our marriage was just really good at that point. Yeah. So,
that's weird. Just to connect with you really quickly on that. I feel like that happened with my husband and I too, like the last like 6 weeks before he died, it was just like this golden, and I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah.
That it ended like that, you know?
Yeah, I know. And I am too, like to know, like I had a great love, you know, like to like, I truly like experienced a great love. And I've thought about like how there are people who, if their husbands died, I think there'd be like a certain level of relief. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel that way. Like there was nothing. And I actually like in our 7th year, I believe it was, or 8th year of marriage, I'd always said like, I'll never get a man's name tattooed on my body. Like never. Mm-hmm. And except like I have my children's names, and that I think it was 7th or 8th year, I surprised him and I tattooed his name on my ring finger because neither one of us wore rings. And when I came home and showed him, like he understood like the depth of that, right? Because it's like, that's ridiculous. Now, like on a really ridiculous note, we always said anytime you tattoo someone's name on, it's the kiss of death. So like every time I'd be like, oh, you got their name, you guys are going to break up, right?
Just as a joke.
Like, as a joke, because it's true. So I'm like, so sorry, I should have never done it. But you know, like at that point, like I know we will never get divorced.
Yeah,
we're
it just was off the table.
Yes, because we'd done the things, and obviously life was going to throw us hard things, but we gotten through them, and we were both like in it, and we both like truly like loved each other. Right. You know, and he died unexpectedly in a work accident. And it was one day he went to work and he never came home. He did spend like a few days in the hospital, which they were very hopeful that he would recover.
Yeah.
And he just had like massive brain damage due to lack of oxygen. So he did not recover.
I saw a post where you were asking people to pray for a quick
death because, well, we needed him to die within an hour because we donated his organs.
Oh, wow.
And if he didn't die within an hour, a lot of them would not be viable. So we needed him to die like quickly. The only thing when they were like, well, what do you want to donate? I'm like, everything except a sperm. And they like looked at me and I was like, I don't know. I don't know the process. So I don't know if that's a thing, but I don't want his sperm going to anybody else. Like that's mine. I have his children. Nobody else gets that. And they were like, oh no, we don't donate sperm. I'm like, okay, cool. Then no problem. Everything, no problem.
How did you have the presence of mind to even think of that?
I don't know. That's like when I was sitting at the thing, it was like, you can take all of it, but you can't take that. And then she's like, you can take it. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, you can like extract it. It costs a certain amount of money. And I'm like, yeah, I have 3 kids right now. Like literally I had a baby like nursing at that moment in the room.
Like a 4-month-old, right?
Yeah, it's a 4-month-old who was with me the whole time. And I'm like, no, I don't need any more children. Like I'm good. So, but
oh my gosh,
it was I don't know, an experience I wouldn't wish on anybody to like pray their person dies fast. Yeah.
I feel like I would love to talk to you for like 6 hours about everything and all the complications. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, especially because this is newer for me than for you. Like I have a million questions for you. I also want to make sure we talk about the dating stuff. Yeah. So, okay. So obviously there's time after he dies where if you're anything like me, you were thinking like, I just can't even go there mentally. Like you're just still in love. And
I didn't even like, it was 13 months after he died. And I had sex with someone. That was the first thing. It wasn't even dating.
And did you pick that person or how did that happen?
You know, he's actually like a person my husband grew up with.
Okay.
I wasn't necessarily like, oh my gosh, I'm so into you, but he was very safe. Yeah. And he was very complimentary and he just made me feel, it just felt like a very like comfortable, safe. And I didn't have to explain any of my situation, right? Like it was known. Yeah. And there was no expectation. And so it ended up being a really good step back in. I'm glad it wasn't with the expectation of we're going to start dating or any of that stuff. Like it was just very like great dinner, super pleasant conversation, had sex, good sex, wasn't bad.
Yeah.
And then, all right, see you later. Like it wasn't,
it's kind of perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Because that whole thing of like, unless you are planning on not having sex until you're married with a new person, which was not my plan, that's overwhelming to think about having sex with someone after you've been with the same person for 13 years. And to think like, I've had 3 kids, like I've nursed 3 children. My boobs are like flat and deflated. They're not like 21-year-old boobs who saw my husband the first time. Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Like I've grown 3 people in this body and I've aged 20 years. Like
which is a beautiful thing.
Which is beautiful. No, that's the thing. Like in my head, I was like, I look great for having 3 kids. I look great for not having 3 kids. Like I'm really happy. But when you're thinking about being naked in front of someone that you've never been, like you've been with the same person who saw you make these changes. Yeah. And you like from his children. Yeah. Like, oh, how am I supposed to do this?
Totally. But then like, was that first experience like affirming for you and confidence building?
Yeah. Yes. He was like, like I said, he was such a kind man. Yeah. He is such a kind man and just so like appreciative and complimentary and never said, because some men are not super pleasant and they won't make you feel good. Right. But it's like, it almost like he like took it upon himself to like make sure that it was good for you. It was good. Yeah. It's just, after that, I started like really deciding I was going to try to date by actively like going on dating websites or apps or whatever. Okay. Which ones did you use? November. I used them all. Okay. Never used Bumble. I never used Bumble. Okay. I used Hinge and Tinder. Okay. I started on Tinder because you start from the bottom, you can only go up from there. So, so I started on Tinder and it wasn't hard. I did not write that I was a widow. I refused to write I was a widow. Okay. Why'd you make that choice? I just didn't feel it was everybody's business. Okay. Totally. Like, I also think there's a thing, you hear someone's a widow and it's like a thing, whether a kinky thing or I'm going to stay away from thing. What the thing is, it's a thing. Right. Yeah. Did write I had children. It didn't take long. It wasn't a long process before I met up with someone. And then my biggest hang up was I had a really hard time. It was always we can have coffee or a walk. I don't want you to buy me dinner. Yeah. I felt like this weird, I'm going to have to a transactional thing of you don't buy me dinner because there's nothing owed, that sort of thing. Yes. That's my issue. But that was really a big thing for me. It was I'll buy my own coffee and we can go for a walk or do whatever. I don't want to have any of that. I was also big on active dates. I was let's go for a walk or a hike or a bike ride. Yeah. Let's do something. I don't want to go to your house. Can you keep up or? Yeah, exactly. So things are busy. I don't want to go to your house where now we're in your house by yourself. Cause that leads to nothing good as far as I'm concerned. I'm 100% cool. If you just want to have sex with someone, cause that's what you're looking for, go for it. Yeah. But that's never what I was looking for. Cause not to be arrogant, but if I want to have sex with someone, I could figure out someone to have sex with. That's not that hard, you know? So, yeah, that's not the long-term goal. Yeah, that's not my point here. So, and then I ended up my biggest thing was I found people got super attached to me really fast. Mm-hmm. But I didn't get super attached to them really fast. Yeah. I had one guy that told me that, I was super clear. He was my first sex experience. I was that was great. I'd love to do that again, but probably just for that. And then after the second time we did it, I was I'm talking to some other guys and he's you're a horrible human. Yeah, yes. I was what? You're no, I told you. Okay. Yep. I had one guy, the first one, he was getting divorced from he'd been with his now ex-wife at that point, wife for 20 years. And like, they got together when they were like 17. Right.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, yeah, this is like from the beginning, he told me, and I'm like, yeah, this is never going to work.
Yeah.
He's like, why? And I'm like, you're not divorced, but two, like you've been with your person since you were like an adolescent, which means like you have never experienced life by yourself. Yeah. So I can't set myself up to be with someone who's never experienced life by themselves. Like, dude, you need some time. And I think that was what was really hard, was meeting these people and realizing that a lot of them had like a lot of work to do.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like they're like, it's like, you have not done your work, and I have done a lot of work. So I don't really want to do this. And then I met up with a couple people here or there. And then I started like hanging out, met one guy, like, so you're super cool. Like and now I'm like, I'm kind of into this guy. Like, and then I was excited, like to even be into someone. Right. Yeah. And then COVID hit, and he was such a nice man. Also didn't do his work. And there was a lot of like talk of how great the relationship was going to be, but no action. So at that point it was like, okay, I'm done. And then I did end up hanging out with one guy. I've only had like one truly bad experience. Yeah. With like raging narcissists. The first time we went out, he's like, I don't generally take people to lunch. And I'm like, I don't generally agree to go to lunch. So like, I was talking about baggage, and he's like, I don't have any baggage. And I'm like, you're a 35-year-old man whose long as
of course you do.
There's no way you can be 35 and not have baggage. Right. So he ended up being like super into me, but a raging narcissist. So he couldn't actually say that. And then just kind of mean because I didn't want to hang out with him. Right? Yeah. And then he was the only one who said anything like, oh, your body is this, this, and this. And it's like, oh, okay. You understand, like I said, you were mean, and then you were mean. So that makes me not want to see you even more. Like it was like a reinforcement of how I'm not interested. So I don't actually care what you think about. And weird, because the other day when we were having sex, you seemed to be okay with it. So it's like,
oh, wait, he was critiquing?
After the fact.
Oh my God.
Not during, no problem. During, everything's great. Right.
Of course.
After the fact. So like when I said I wasn't really like, I didn't really want to see him again. So, yeah. So I feel like I probably had sex with more people than, if I looked back, I'd probably be like, I probably wouldn't do that. I probably wouldn't do that. But at the moment, I hadn't been with anybody for 12 years. And like, part of it was just like, I want to feel attractive. Like I want to be touched. Yeah. I want someone to look at me with like some level of desire. Like it's been a long time. And I was so lonely. Yeah. And I didn't even admit it, but I was truly like seeking for someone to save me. That's really what I was doing. And that's obviously like, that's not realistic.
So when did you realize that? Because that feels like a huge realization.
I realized that around like about a year after I started the dating app thing. Okay. And there was a guy who like, we hit it off. It was really good. And he was truly the first person that I finally had the conversation of like, I am interested in you. Yeah. So at this point, like, are you interested in me? And do we proceed with this to be like actually dating each other? Or do we not? Because like I'm one of those people who's like, I'm at a crossroads. If I go any further in one direction, I'm gonna really like you. Yes. If I stop, then I'm okay. Right? Like I'm not gonna get myself hurt. So I need to know where you are. Like I'm not gonna proceed because there's just no point if you're not interested. And so he said, well, I just don't think I can give you what you need. And I was like, cool, no problem. I actually really prefer that you're straight with me. Right. Yeah. But that was like he was the first person I was really into. And then he was the person who didn't want to be with me. So that was like,
that hurts.
That hurt. It hurt. And then after that, I was very like, kind of like willy-nilly about the dating. And I dated one more person, but I was starting to feel like, what am I doing? What am I doing with this? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I started to do that. And then I dated one more guy, sweetest man ever, like
literally the nicest man ever, little dumb, and, and just like a little kid, right? Like would split like $12 nachos, like just like that sort of stuff where I'm like, yeah, I can't do this. And so the splitting of the $12 nachos was the end for me. So nice though, but it was like, dude, I will have to train you. I've already done that. And I have 3 children who I'm trying to train to be good men. Like, I just don't have the energy.
Oh my gosh. I went on this date with this guy and I swear he was like inadvertently telling me that his mom still does his laundry. And I was like, I have 2 kids. I'm a widow and I'm 38. Like, this is not gonna work.
Yes, that was the same. Like, this man lived alone. He did all of his own stuff, but he was just so childlike, and not in a bad way. Just, I mean, again, so sweet, but just childlike. Like, I felt I would be taking care of a 4th child. And at that point, like when that nacho thing happened, I like came to the realization that like, I am so waiting for someone else to fix my grief. Like, I'm waiting for someone to come and make it better. But I want someone to take care of me. Like, I've realized I want someone who has done their work and will take care of me. Yeah. And not like that I'm not going to give it back, because that's the thing. I know what I'm going to give back, right? Because I have done this. Like, I was a good wife. Like, I had a good marriage. I didn't have a marriage that was like destroyed by something that I did. And so then I, like, at that point after Nacho Man, I just was like, I'm done. I'm out. Like, I shut off the dating apps because they truly are like just so bad for me in particular. Not everybody, but like that, like, it's just all ego. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this person likes me and I'm chatting. And I don't know about you, but how many times do I have to explain and try to sell myself? I don't want to sell myself. Like, yeah, I'm valuable. I know that. I'm so tired of trying to convince people that I'm valuable. Like, you almost want to just be like, can you just like come meet me and just decide? Like, yeah, I don't want to tell you. I'll meet you here. If you're interested, cool. If you're not, cool. I don't actually care. And please don't feel like you're going to hurt my feelings if you say you're not, because probably I'm not going to be interested in you. Yeah. Also, like, and they were the dating app. They just were like so bad for my mental health. And I would find myself just being consumed by them. And I would find myself being irritated at my kids because the dating thing. And then at that point, this was like last August, I just stopped dating altogether. I was like, I'm done. I'm done with the apps. I'm done dating. I'm taking like a 6-month break. And that was my own like thing I put on myself, but I'm done. And what I'm going to do is I use dating as a way to avoid dealing with my grief, because if I can be texting some man who seems interested in me, I don't have to think about how lonely and sad I am. Right. Like, yeah, I can just text these people. And then when those people go away, there's always new people. Right. Because it's a dating app. So, and even in like, I'm finding that even in relationship that I do that too. It's like, when I miss my husband, I just text my boyfriend. It's like, that's ridiculous. 100%. Right. And you can't truly sit with your grief because and not you, but like, I would just be like, I'm just going to let myself be consumed by these 7 text strands. So there's no time for anything, but there also wasn't time for me to pay attention to my kids. And I don't mean in a way that I was neglectful, but just like my mind was occupied. Right. Yeah. I just wasn't present. And so I shut that whole thing down and I was like, I'm done. I'm going to give myself 6 months. And it was really good. It was such a good idea to just push it out and to just stop it all and to allow myself and I started it like 3 weeks before my birthday, my 38th birthday. Okay. So so I really wanted to take a cooking class and I go and I'm by myself. So I'm like, all right, I'm owning this. Like, I'm a fucking lonely ass widow, right? Like, I'm lonely. And I'm going to a cooking class by myself on my birthday. And I'm probably going to cry. I was crying as I was driving there. I'm about to cry right now. Yeah. And so I'm like, I walk in And there's only 3 of us. And the other 2 are this beautiful young lesbian couple who are on their 1-year anniversary. And I'm like, of course there is, right? Like, so cute. They're so touchy-feely and they're so affectionate. And I'm like, my gray hair and my fucking glasses. And you're like, they're gotta be like 22. I don't know. And I'm just like, yeah, this is sitting in my loneliness right now. And at one point I'm like, you guys want me to take a picture of you? Like that old person who offers.
I thought you were going to say you asked if you could give them a hug.
I didn't, but they did hug me at the end, right? Because like we became friends and you know, and so it ended up being a really fun experience. But I was also like really proud of myself for just
totally
doing it, right? Like I felt like that was like a huge accomplishment to go to a cooking class alone on my birthday, knowing I could be with somebody, knowing I could go with somebody would have gone with me.
Of course.
Right. And so that was like my big, like, that was 3 weeks in and I'm like, I can do this. And then I started training jujitsu and that's like a huge deal of like my mental health. It's been huge. And then, so it was just a lot of like, just sitting in my room, being lonely and actively stopping myself from texting someone. Right. Like,
okay. So here's my question for you, because like, I think I definitely don't want to do that because it feels so painful. Like I'm listening to you and I'm like, that sounds horrible. I feel like I already did that and I don't want to go back there. But you obviously have like, I don't know, maybe a goal in mind or something you're hoping to get from that time.
My goal was to stop trying to think that being in a relationship would stop me from feeling lonely. Right? My goal was to stop thinking that somehow another person is going to make this stop. Yeah. And also like know that even though I feel lonely right now, it's temporary. That was the goal, was to just like remove that variable from fixing it, because there isn't any fixing it.
Of course.
And even though like I pride myself on my independence and whatever, I want to be in a partnership. Like I want to be a wife. I love being a wife, you know?
Yeah, I know.
And I would find it to be like, and then when it wouldn't work out, it would just like, oh, there's more time wasted and I'm still not a wife again. And somehow I'm still lonely. But then I know that no one's going to fix that. So I'm going to have to like know. And then like when I was in that cooking class and I'm thinking like, I am so like, I remember thinking I'm chopping up shallots, which you're allowed to cry when you do that because and I thought like, I'm so fucking lonely right now. But it was okay because it's okay to be lonely. Like I almost had to come to terms with the fact that it's okay to feel that. Right. And before I was just finding ways to avoid it.
Yeah.
And I think like feeling it also made me know that I'll feel it and it will recede and it won't be there forever. Like I don't actually feel lonely all day, every day. I just get these like huge waves of loneliness and these huge waves of pain. And I would avoid those by texting people. So
I just feel like I'm sort of in awe of the fact that you could do that. And like, I don't know. I don't know if I have the strength to do that, you know? And like, it's so healthy. I'm just like, damn.
I think like I think it was like a personal challenge and I thrive on a good challenge.
Yes.
So it was like one of those things where it's like, this is so unpleasant. If you ever gotten a tattoo, you're like, this is so, I mean, I love getting a tattoo. I love it, but it's not pleasant, but it is pleasant in a certain way, right? Like there's
No, I think this totally says something about you because I only have one tattoo and I got it after my husband and I did the Ironman. So that was like my whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, as I was getting it, I was like, this is the worst thing I've ever done in my life. It was terrible. I hated it. And I enjoyed zero of that. So like, there's part of you, I think, that just like harnesses the pain.
Well, I think an Ironman sounds highly painful and completely unpleasant. So.
It is.
there's nothing about that would ever make me want to do it. So it's like, but no, I think you're right in the way, like I had 3 babies completely drug-free because I wanted to say that I had 3 babies drug-free, not because I wanted to know that I could do it. Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like and I also felt like there's no way that I'm going to ever be another partner if I can't revel in my loneliness. Like I will never be ready to be with someone. And that's what I would find. I met a beautiful man, like just beautiful inside and out, who wanted to be with me. He wanted to be my partner and I couldn't do it. And I know it's because I have not like just sat and allowed myself to be sad, just inherently to my core sad, right?
What do you think about, because when you're saying that, I'm thinking about like, okay, well, my first year before I even allowed myself to think about anybody else really, like that's what I felt like that whole time was for. But I also know a lot of that was sort of shock and just like survival.
Yeah, my first year was all take care of my children, numbness, and more of like, I'm a son of a bitch who's not going to be taken down by this.
Yeah.
But it was all like, do it. You can do this. And this like idea that I'm not going to let my children's lives suffer because their father died. In fact, I can't. I have to go like above and beyond, right? Because like they already lost their dad, which means I have to be like super mom.
Yeah.
And then the second year, it kind of was like less numb, but I still had a 1-year-old. And then this year has been, okay, I have like children who can go off and play on their own.
Yeah.
I was able to go on like a trip with my girlfriends for 5 days. Like I was able to kind of almost like I wasn't nursing a child anymore. I wasn't doing any of that stuff. Now that I'm like back in my head, I need to do this because I want to be a partner one day. And I just kept feeling that I was just hindering me from ever truly leaning into anything.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's just so much goodness there. Okay. Tell us what's happening with you now.
Well, I am dating someone now, and that didn't happen on a dating app.
And this is pretty new, right?
It's new. It's like 6 weeks.
Okay.
And it's very magical. It's very different than the others. Like every other person, there was always like within a week, I was telling like my best friend that there was already like, this is, right. Like there was never that like magical, like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm like 16, right? Like none of that. It's always like, oh, I don't like this part and I don't like that part. And this hasn't been that. And it's almost feels like curated by the universe. He has experienced loss. His fiance died, which has been amazing because like I can legitimately full on just be griefy and nothing, like no uncomfortableness with it, which for all of us, I assume we've all felt it where we talk about the person and there's like this, you almost have to curb your discomfort to make other people feel comfortable. Right.
Yeah.
And then I've had people be like, you talk about Paul a lot. And it's like, he was my person, but for my entire adulthood, I don't know. I have like very little experiences as an adult without Paul in them. So what am I supposed to do? You know? And then I also have 3 kids who need to know about their dad, which means I need to talk about him.
That's the thing, right? It's like that legacy piece for your kids. And
I need you to talk about him. Like,
yes,
I need you to know who he is so that if you're going to be with my kids who are his kids, you can tell them about him. Like, that's important. I can have more than one person, but I need you to be enthusiastic about it. Like I need you to actively want to know who he is. I need you to almost be as excited to learn who he is because who I am today is huge. He impacted me so much of who I am today that you wouldn't have me without him. Right? Like
100%.
Like I wouldn't be this person unless I had that marriage with him. So it's important, like, you know,
totally.
And so, no, it's been really good, really good. And I have realized that there's like these huge things for me. A lot of what's really important is for me is someone who's capable of communicating and having like repairing and being capable of saying like, yeah, I'm listening to you. You're saying this and I'm not going to invalidate you. I'm not going to like defend myself. I'm not going to do this. Let's just have the conversation, right? Like, let's have an emotionally mature conversation and just give the other person the benefit of the doubt that they want this to work and they're not just attacking. Because I feel like that's what people do, right? They're like, you're attacking me. And it's like, no, I want us to have a good relationship. Good relationships require like discussions and feedback, and they require people to look at themselves and
growth
on both sides, not even just obviously
100%.
Yeah.
In a previous relationship, you had introduced your kids to someone you were dating, and you said that they got really attached, which was hard.
Immediately. And actually more than one. And I have not done that yet. Now I'm like super, super standoffish with my kids. I've given it to be like, it'll probably be close to 6 months before I introduce them. My kids want a father, like desperately want a father. They've even, my one son has even told me like, we want a dad. So I feel like sad that I made those choices before. I didn't know any better. I'm not beating myself up over it, but I will like learn from it. I'm not going to set them up for failure. I don't want to be one of those women who constantly introduce my kids to people who don't stay in my life.
Totally.
So, and they still ask about like the two people that they've met. My son asked me the other day, hey, are we going to ever see him again? And I'm like, probably not.
Yeah.
I had to explain like what that meant. And he's like, okay. And like, he understood, but it's still to them, that became a person that they wanted to be around.
But you're also showing them and modeling for them and teaching them like how to date and how to prioritize what you need. And
yeah, exactly. So this person, I was really straightforward about that. And I just said, like, I really want us to get to know each other. But the greatest part is he doesn't live in San Diego.
Okay.
He lives in Utah, right?
Oh, that's so hard.
But it's weird because it's really good because I have little impulse control. Okay.
I see where this is going.
And he also has little impulse control. So it's been like, we actually met via Instagram. I followed his profile as soon as I learned he was I follow this one girl. She said he lost somebody. And I started looking at his profile and I started following him because, you know, the widower network thing, right?
Totally.
And so I knew he existed long before he knew I did, which is weird because when I looked at his profile, I thought to myself, like, dude, if we ever met, we would totally like be together. Right. But I didn't think anything of it. But I'm like, and I don't randomly message people. Like I don't. So I never messaged. A week before we started talking, he ended up randomly following me. I thought it was like, oh, he saw that I was a widow. I saw he was, whatever. So one day he posted something about his like beard turning gray. And I just messaged him like, grief brings the gray. Cause I have like, I stopped dyeing my hair. I stopped dyeing my hair before Paul died, but like I have big, like mega gray streaks running down my temples now. Yeah. And that ended up being like, I was messaged him and it wasn't a flirt, like, cause I'm not dating. Remember I'm 6 months out. So like, I'm about 3 months into my no dating. And it was just mainly to say like, you're not alone.
Yeah.
It does. That's grief. Like, and you're not, cause I read some people's things and I would just want to write like, I gotcha. Feel exact same way. I'm here. Like we're all here. We all like, you're not isolated in this like experience. Right.
And that's the beauty of the Instagram thing.
Right. Exactly.
It's like so weird, but also amazing.
Yeah. Like all these people who I'm like legitimate friends with.
Yep.
And I've never met in real life.
Yeah.
So it ended up being, just like we hit it off. And then within like a day, there was legit flirting. And then it was like, dang, like you're cool. And I'm cool. And like, so he ended up, within like a week, he booked a ticket and he came out here. So we met in real life, and it was great. It was like as though we'd known each other like forever, right? It was comfortable. It was familiar. There was something about it. And like I said, the distance thing is great because I just like, I go like whatever I do in my life, I'm like, we're doing this. We're training jujitsu. Fine. We're going to train jujitsu, right? Like
that's exactly how I am.
Yeah. When I do something, I do it.
Oh.
Right? Yeah. And it's hard because I'm 38. I've been married. This isn't like, oh, I've never done this before. Like I've done it. Yeah. And you just feel it's hard to go slow.
Oh, totally. I feel like an internal race, right?
Yes,
like,
yes.
Ooh, yeah.
I gotta get to there. I gotta get to the point where I know this is my new person, right? Like all of that. And then you're like, oh, I should not have done that. Like I should put myself up. How do you do that? I don't understand it. And so, but he's not a go slower either. So this ended up being really good because we had like 3 full weeks of just FaceTiming and texting and no meeting. So it was like forced go slow. You have to go. Plus, like once you have sex, that clouds you, especially if it's good. It messes you up, right? So you're like, well, you're kind of dumb, but the sex is really good. So I don't know if I'm going to break up with you. Do you know what I mean, though? Like, as soon as you have sex, and if it's good, you're like, slide. But in the long run, if you've been married for a long time, you know that good sex does not cover that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. I mean, the sex can stay goodish, but it doesn't cover that other stuff. No.
All the annoying things, because at some point you're like, oh, it's not that good.
Right.
No sex that's that good. So it was really good. And then like we met, it was a wonderful like weekend, like literally like magical. And then we're actually gonna like hang out this weekend. He's coming back in town, and he's great. Like we had like, again, a disruption, like, that somebody said something, it was interpreted incorrectly. And the conversation afterwards was so nice,
healthy,
and pleasant and healthy. And just, how do you feel about this? Okay, let me address that. This is how I feel about this. Okay, let me address that. Like it was none of that ego. It's great. I have nothing bad to say. Even when we had that, I was actually like, afterwards, I'm like, I'm so happy that happened. Like, I'm so happy that there was a misinterpretation, because I need to know how you're going to deal with, because I know how I deal with it. Right. Mm-hmm. But I need to know how you're going to deal with it. Because I can't be with a person who can't deal with conflict.
Yeah. Because like you've been married, conflict comes up all the time. You have to know. I've had like that same mental conversation with myself. Like I actually need to maybe pick a fight with this guy, because
you should make it happen.
Yeah. No, we've done it now, and he's actually excellent in that scenario. But yeah, I went through all that too. Totally.
Mm-hmm. Even in a good marriage, that there's shit times, right? There's going to be times you're like, should we stay married? There's going to be times you're like, I can't stand your face. There's going to be all those times. So even when you're like doing it, because that's what a relationship, it ebbs and flows. So you can't have the one without the other. Yeah. And it's great.
Okay. Couple questions. One is I threw out to some close friends on Instagram if anyone had questions for you. And one of the questions was, is there anything that you did in your marriage or had with Paul that you like won't let yourself do with someone new?
Yeah, there is. I think I made myself smaller in my marriage because it was very like traditional. Like, and I feel like the way Paul grew up, I didn't allow myself to be me because I wanted to be the me that he needed. Right. And I won't do that again. I will be me, and I will be me alone, or I would be me with someone who sees me and like celebrates me, because I'm big. Like I'm big and I'm intense. Like I am. And I know that about myself, and I'm not for everybody, but I know that like when he died, there was a lot of parts of me that I rediscovered, and I don't want those to go away.
Totally. I feel that too. Also, I'm like thinking about your persona and like the little that I know about you from the internet, and like you totally portray all that, like confidence and strength. And so like, what are your insecurities as a widow, or like, where do you question yourself? Or have you moved beyond that? Like,
no, not even a little bit. I'm really afraid that I'm going to pick somebody wrong and get divorced. I'm really afraid that this part of me that wants to be a partner is going to be so desperate that I'm going to pick the wrong person. Yeah. I was like molested when I was a little kid, so I'm super afraid of picking someone who's going to hurt my kids. So I like doubt myself a lot in that. And then what I do is I just push people away because I'm like, well, I know that if I'm with nobody, I can prevent that. Right. I'm kind of like crass. Like, I'm like I'll say, like, I know one of my issues is like, I'm kind of an asshole. I'm really not an asshole, but like, the way I talk, like sometimes it comes off like I'm just a fucking asshole, right? Like, so there's that.
I find that endearing.
Oh, thank you. That's why I said I'm not for everybody. And I'm like, I have no issue with conflict. Like, I'm not going to back away from it. I do not seek it out. I'm not confrontational. I just refuse to like have the awkwardness. And so I'll say the things that like my friends are always like, you say it, right? Because they know I will. Like, that's the thing. I'm also like, I'm really like just, and this is just vanity, but like, I'm a little insecure with like my boobs. I won't lie. It really bothers me. Like, I won't ever go and get any plastic surgery because I truly want to like not chase youth. And I want to like honor the body that I have and honor the fact that I nursed like 3 kids for 6 years and do that. But I'm still like, I still have those like major body insecurities, which the rest of me, like I'm in super good shape right now because of jujitsu and I feel great. But then I look at myself and I'm like, oh, and then it just makes me like doubt myself, which is stupid. What a minimal thing, right? But that's like a big deal.
Okay, I just had to like ask to make you more real so that you're not like a superhero.
Not my kids, and I'm like lose my patience and I get really frustrated and all those things that everybody else does. So.
Thank God, just like the rest of us. Okay, I'm gonna do a couple quick questions with you.
Okay.
So yes, no, maybe. Marriage again someday.
Yes.
Kids or more kids with a new spouse?
The person I'm with right now, that would not be an option, but I have truly felt like I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gender experimentation?
No, I just love the dick. I can't.
I hear you. Setups from your friends?
Never had them set me up.
Okay. If it didn't work out with this guy?
I probably wouldn't. No.
Okay. Regular self-gratification?
Yeah, for sure.
Sleepovers in your bed?
I have, yes.
Okay. Was that hard? Or not a thing?
No.
Okay.
I don't live in the same like room in the house that Paul and I lived in, although it's the same mattress. It's a different bed. It's a different room.
Okay. You changed it up.
Yeah.
Totally. Okay. Could you date someone with Paul's name?
Ooh, I actually thought about that. I think I could.
Could you date someone that looks like him?
Yeah. He was hot.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Totally could.
Okay. So final question. I just like feel like maybe I'm going to have to have another conversation with you down the road, but what's something you're really looking forward to?
Like a slow weekend night, watch a movie and like your children are there and you're not wondering like, is this person not going to be around? Like just that, those moments of like, dude, we're just sitting here. Kids are crawling all over people. Just like that contentment.
Yeah.
That's I'm very much looking forward to that again.
Yeah, that sounds heavenly. I
know. Yes, it does.
I really just have so much respect for you. And
thank you.
Thanks for putting it all out there.
As you've seen, I put nobody on anything on Instagram. I've had conversations, Instagram's a whole thing. There'll be a ring on my finger before a person gets on Instagram. That's a big deal to me,
Oh yeah.
But I do feel the hardest thing about Instagram and the nice thing about Anonymous is my whole Instagram was about widowhood for the longest time, but that's not as defining anymore as it once was. Right.
So that's good to know.
Hard to be on my Instagram and post because it's part of me wants everybody to know, I am still a widow and this is still shitty.
Yeah.
But it's not what it once was. It wasn't not what it was a year ago. It's not what it was 2 years ago. It's not what it was 3 years ago. And so I almost don't know my identity on Instagram. So I struggle to post things because I feel if I just post a regular thing, all of a sudden I'm not a widow anymore. That's still a fucking widow, right?
Yeah.
I'm just a regular person. And it feels I always have to make some connection to the widow thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't want people to forget, not that I'm a widow, but just that it doesn't end.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? Those other people, I know for me, and I know you guys wouldn't forget, but all the regular people who are oh, she posted a regular thing.
Oh, totally.
She must be fine. Right.
Yeah. Things are looking really good for you.
I'm not fine. And I am fine. It's all
totally.
So yeah.
Oh my gosh. So. All right. Thank you so much.
Oh, so fun.
Okay. We'll talk again.
All right. Awesome.
All right. Bye. So how amazing was that? I just loved that conversation with Mariah and have thought about it so many times since. I think she is just one of those people where her outlook on the whole thing feels incredibly healthy and confident and unapologetic. And knowing she is a couple years down the road from me in her grief journey, I just aspire to that. So I am so thankful to her for that conversation, and I really hope we will get to check back in with her in the future. This has been Dating After Death. We'll see you next time.